When I transmigrated into the eldest daughter of the Prince Regent's mansion, I happened to be at the original owner's wedding ceremony, but the one marrying me was a rooster tied with red silk. Enraged, I immediately lifted my veil and glared at the steward sitting on the high platform to question him. The steward raised his chin arrogantly. "Madam, Master is also marrying Miss Liu today and is exchanging vows in the main hall, as a concubine. You can only marry this rooster in the side room, me, a dignified princess, marrying a Zhuangyuan, top scholar, as a concubine. What a farce." I stormed straight into the main hall to demand an explanation. My fiancé looked unconcerned. "I've promised to take you as my wife. Does your status really matter that much? Weina was born in a brothel and has no family to rely on. The position of legal wife is only to protect her. Your father is the Prince Regent. Your brother is the Grand General who guards the nation, and your sister is the Empress. Even as a concubine, no one will dare bully you." I nodded in understanding. Since the Zhuangyuan is so righteous, I should return the favor. I slowly turned around and casually ordered the guards behind me, "Someone, execute castration on the Zhuangyuan, demote him to slave status, and make him serve in the mansion. Send his legal wife, the courtesan, to my brother's military camp as a reward for the soldiers. The princess is truly noble. Hurry up, or you'll delay the auspicious hour." The steward's sarcastic voice reached my ears. I looked down in surprise only to find myself wearing a peach-pink wedding dress for a concubine. "I'm getting married." A shrill rooster crow rang out. In the groom's place stood a rooster tied with red silk, defecating all over the floor, and on the high platform where my parents should have sat. The steward was rolling his eyes, waiting for me to come forward and offer tea. Before I could react, a disciplined nanny slapped me hard on the back. "Princess, why aren't you paying respects to your elders? Has the Prince Regent's mansion not taught you any rules at all? I heard she grew up with her father and brother in the military camp. Being wild and uneducated must run in the family. She's so vulgar, how can she be worthy of master? At best, she's only fit to be a concubine." Chaotic voices flooded my mind, a sharp headache struck, and the original owner's memories surged forth. I remembered now. I had transmigrated into the eldest daughter of the Prince Regent, who held immense power over the court. The original owner had a loving father, the Prince Regent, a brother, the Grand General who guards the nation, and a sister, the Empress who ruled the harem. Yet even being spoiled by everyone, she still pined unrequitedly for a man named Song Chengyu. She not only married him as a concubine despite her noble status but was later deceived by Song Chengyu and turned into a disabled human pig, a cruel torture where limbs are cut off. Her father and brother were shot to death with 10,000 arrows, and her sister committed suicide in the Eastern Palace. The original owner's memories still carried the pain and resentment of being made into a human pig. Furious, I gritted my teeth and instantly drew a whip to lash at the nanny. Still not satisfied, I picked up a cup of hot tea and splashed it directly on the steward's face as he waited for my tea offering. I kicked the steward aside, strode over, and sat majestically on the high seat he had occupied. I ordered my dowry maid, "Whoever wants to marry this wretched man can marry him. I won't. Hurry back to the mansion and report to father. Tell him to bring men to take me home." I glanced disdainfully at the cobweb-covered side room. "This rat's nest, staying here for one more minute feels unlucky." When I rushed into the main hall where Song Chengyu was exchanging vows, he was affectionately marrying Liu Weina. The hall was resplendent and magnificent, filled with distinguished guests. It only made the side room where I married a rooster seem even more shabby and neglected by comparison. I swung my whip, splitting the longevity table between them in two. "Song Chengyu, what do you mean by this? Not only making me marry in the side room, but also daring to take a dignified princess like me as a concubine, you have quite the nerve." Song Chengyu pulled Liu Weina aside to dodge the whip. Anger flared in his eyes. "Jiang Zhaoyun, I've promised to take you into my family. Does it really matter if you're the legal wife or a concubine? Besides, didn't you willingly choose this peach-pink concubine's wedding dress yourself?" Liu Weina, wearing a bright red wedding dress for the legal wife, covered her mouth with a smile. "Yes, sister, You specially chose the pink dress for yourself and let me wear red just to make my husband happy, didn't you? Could it be that you were pretending to be dignified and magnanimous earlier, and now you're going back on your word to deliberately disrupt the wedding? A sharp pain pierced my head, and I recalled that the original owner had indeed agreed to this. Song Changyu had once declared that he would never marry anyone but Liu Weina as his legal wife, otherwise, he would rather become a monk. He had also deceived the original owner, saying that being a concubine would make him pity her more, and he would cherish her even deeply. Desperate to win a little more affection from her beloved, the original owner had endured the humiliation of being a concubine. Looking at Song Chengyu's arrogant attitude, I was overcome with anger. Such a spoiled and beloved princess, humiliating herself to such depths for love. That's why she let Song Chengyu step on her to climb the social ladder, leading to the wrongful death of her entire family. Perhaps the original owner's spirit was filled with resentment and unwillingness. It must have been fate that guided me to take over her body and avenge her. I stared at Song Chengyu with a cold laugh. The grievances and debts were not yet settled. Now that I'm here, I will never repeat her tragic fate. I raised my whip and pointed to the 99 chests of my dowry. Song Chengyu, I originally only wanted to test you. I never thought you'd be so arrogant as to disrespect the Prince Regent's mansion like this. If you have the guts to offend the Prince Regent's mansion, what does it matter if you passed the imperial examination as Zhuang Yuan? With one word from me, your official career ends today. Seeing that I was determined to call off the marriage, and my servants even started moving my dowry out, Song Chengyu panicked. That's impossible. This dowry has already entered the Song family's gate. How can it be taken back? He gritted his teeth and grabbed my sleeve. Zhaoyun, you're already married into the Song family. Calling off the marriage will make you the laughingstock of everyone. How could I bear to let others point fingers at you and gossip about you? He wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and persuaded me softly. It's all my fault for not thinking carefully. I should have staggered the times. Finishing the vows with Weina first before coming to marry you. After comforting me, he condescendingly conceded, it's my fault for making you unhappy. Don't make a scene on such a joyous day. Tell you what, I'll allow you to come to the main hall and exchange vows with Weina together. I never imagined Song Chengyu could be so shameless. Enraged, I slapped him across the face. I've given you too much face. How dare you insult me like this? Song Chengyu held his cheek, his eyes filled with shock. How dare you hit me? I'm your husband. I sneered. I hit you because I wanted to. What? Do I need to check the almanac before hitting you? I not only dare to hit you, but I also dare to kick you. You asked for it. I have to satisfy you. Having grown up in the military camp, I was quite strong. With one kick, I sent Song Chengyu crashing into the wall. Liu Weina hurried to help him up, looking distressed. Jiang Zhaoyun, if you have any grievances, take them out on me. Why do you have to hit my husband? I tilted my head and smiled, then slapped her too. What status do you have to speak to me? Daring to call this princess by her given name directly? If you don't want to live, I'll send you to reincarnate right away. Liu Weina was so frightened she didn't dare meet my eyes. It was then that I noticed the layers of jewelry on her body. They were all part of my dowry. I laughed angrily. These two were truly competing to be the most shameless. You dare to steal my things? Aren't you afraid you'll lose your life wearing them? I directly tore the hairpin from Liu Weina's head and the jewelry from her neck. With a swing of my whip, I shredded her wedding dress. Her hair fell loose, and red marks were left on her neck from the jewelry. She screamed in shame and anger, hiding in Song Chengyu's arms. Seeing this, Song Chengyu's manly dignity swelled up instantly. You've gone too far. You publicly destroyed Weina's wedding dress. How will she face others now? I laughed out loud. Liu Weina was a courtesan for 10 years. Hasn't her body already been used by countless men? Now she's pretending to be a chaste woman here. Besides, these clothes and dowry are mine in the first place. Isn't it you two who are in the wrong for stealing my things? Hearing my mockery, Liu Weina cried and threw herself into Song Chengyu's arms. Brother Chengyu, it's not true. I only performed arts, not my body. You're the only man I've ever had. Song Chengyu hugged her tightly. Looking distressed, he turned to glare at me coldly. Jiang Zhaoyun, you're bullying people too much. Today, unless you kneel down and apologize to Waina, this matter won't be over. I was amused by his self-righteousness, me, a dignified princess, kneeling to apologize to a lowly slave. I can't believe you even thought of that. Song Chungyu resented my contempt. I've already redeemed Waina and married her. Now she's my wife, not some lowly slave, Liu Waina sobbed. It's all my fault for being born into a humble family, unlike sister who has such a noble background. If I had been born into a family like sister's, how could I have ended up in a brothel? Her display of pity aroused sympathy from everyone around. People in the crowd pointed at me and whispered, I've never seen such an aggressive woman, bossing around her husband and his wife, completely lacking in feminine virtue, bullying others because of her family background. Using feminine virtue to pressure me, I laughed until my sides hurt. I am what a woman can be. I scanned the crowd and admitted openly, that's right, I am bullying you because of my status, so what? I'm a princess, and I have the right to do so. If you don't like it, go kill yourselves and reincarnate. Seeing everyone left tongue-tied by my retort, Song Chungyu's face turned red with anger. You've gone too far. Waina has already had a miserable life. Why do you insist on humiliating her again and again? If you still refuse to apologize to Waina, I will never forgive you. You'll never win my love for the rest of your life. I stared at his head and sighed. How could anyone be so conceited? Do you really think you're some kind of coveted treasure? I was blind to have taken a liking to a scumbag like you before. I'll give you two choices. First, castrate yourself, kneel down and kowtow to apologize to me. Then return all my dowry in full, and I'll spare your life. Second, I'll kill you both now and fulfill your wish of being a pair of doomed lovers. Song Chungyu never expected me to be so furious. Veins bulged on his neck. You're going too far. I won't choose either. The guests present erupted in murmurs. After all, Song Chungyu was the newly appointed Zhuangyuan, top scholar. Even as a princess, I shouldn't treat human life so lightly. I scratched my ear, indifferent. If you won't choose, then I'll choose for you. Rather than letting you live this lowly life, I'd rather see you die sooner. I drew my personal sword and walked toward Song Chungyu. Liu Waina rushed forward to block him. Come at me if you have the guts. I'll never let a jealous woman like you hurt brother Chungyu. I tilted my head and smiled. Very well, since you're so eager to die, I'll come for you first. I stabbed directly at Liu Waina's abdomen with my sword. And she fell into a coma, blood splattered everywhere, and the crowd scattered in terror. Song Chungyu finally realized that I wasn't just a woman throwing a tantrum, fighting off his fear. He shouted insults at me. You're crazy. I'm an official of the court. How dare you hurt Waina? I'll never let you get away with this. I narrowed my eyes and smiled. Oh, really? I'd like to see how you'll stop me, watching me approach step by step with the blood-stained sword. Song Chungyu turned pale. He never expected me to be so different from before. He grabbed a guard and shouted, Are you all blind? Get her. I glanced coldly at the guards. Choose offend me, or offend the Zhuangyuan. As soon as I finished speaking, all of Song Chungyu's guards stepped back. Song Chungyu gritted his teeth. You useless cowards, with no guards to stop me. I quickly closed in on Song Chungyu. The dripping sword dragged on the ground, sparking. Song Chungyu continued to threaten. I'm an official of the court, this year's newly appointed Zhuangyuan. If you dare kill me, even if you're a princess and the prince regent's daughter, he won't be able to protect you. You'll definitely die. I slowly pressed the sword against Song Chungyu's neck. Is that so? Then you'll definitely die before me. Just as my sword was about to cut Song Chungyu's neck, an old man's roar echoed. Stop! How dare you assassinate an official of the court? Do you want to bring disaster to your entire clan? The newcomer was none other than the Prime Minister, known for his virtue and prestige. I clicked my tongue and withdrew the sword from Song Chungyu's neck. I looked at the elderly Prime Minister. Why, does killing a Zhuangyuan really warrant the Prime Minister's personal attention? Am I not worthy of killing such a lowly Zhuangyuan as a dignified princess? The Prime Minister stared at me with a dark expression. Even if Lord Song has done something wrong, he should be punished by the law. You have no right to humiliate him arbitrarily. I curled my lips into a smile. What if I insist on doing it? The Prime Minister frowned. His aged eyes cold as ice. If you dare kill an official of the court, aren't you afraid of bringing disaster to your entire clan? Even if you don't care about yourself, don't you care about your father, brother, and sister? Do you think the emperor will spare them? Aren't you afraid of your entire family being executed? I've never been afraid of threats in my life. I shook my head and chuckled. So the Prime Minister is saying that the glory of my Jiang family isn't enough to take down a newly appointed Zhuang Yuan. Today, I'll see what happens if I really kill him. My sword flashed like lightning, pointing directly at Song Chengyu. But the next second, a sword was also pressed against my neck. It was the Prime Minister who had made a move. I wasn't the least bit surprised. I looked calmly at the old man. What does this mean? Prime Minister, are you going to kill me? A princess, for this lowly official. The Prime Minister's dark eyes were unfathomable. My apologies, Princess, but I will never tolerate the abuse of lynching. As long as I'm here, no one will hurt Lord Song. Seeing that the most prestigious Prime Minister in the dynasty was also protecting him, Song Chengyu plucked up his courage and complained to the Prime Minister about my disregard for human life. He tried to get someone to lock me up in the imperial prison. The situation on the field reversed. All the guests could testify against me. Just as everyone jumped out to accuse me, the sword the Prime Minister held against my neck pressed down harder. A trickle of blood immediately appeared on my neck. At that moment, the door was kicked open with a bang. A man dressed as a military general, wearing iron armor, roared and rushed in. With me here, who dares to hurt my daughter? Before death could reach me, my father and brother arrived. A long knife cut through the air, flying directly to chop off the Prime Minister's sword-wielding hand. My father ran over quickly, confirming that I was unharmed. He raised his knife at the Prime Minister again. You've got a lot of nerve to dare touch my daughter, Prime Minister Wang. Aren't you afraid that I'll exterminate your entire clan to bury you with me? Two elderly but imposing men stared at each other. Sparks seemed to fly in the air. The Prime Minister turned pale first, clutching his severed hand and threatening, "If you dare touch me and Lord Song, the Emperor will never spare you. No matter how many military merits you've achieved as the Prince Regent, you'll still die." Hearing his arrogant words, my father could barely hold back his long knife. Wanting to stab him to death, I quickly stopped him, then turned to stare at the Prime Minister. "Don't worry, even if I kill you and Song Chengyu, the Jiang family won't perish. I hold your secret. When the Emperor finds out, he might even thank me and reward the Jiang family with glory and wealth." The Prime Minister shook his head with a sneer. "I, Wang Xiaod, have lived a life of integrity. What secret could a little girl like you possibly know?" Song Chengyu helped Prime Minister Wang, looking displeased. "That's right. Prime Minister Wang has served the court diligently all his life. What hidden secrets could he have?" "Jiang Zhaoyun, stop spouting nonsense and spreading alarmist lies here." I looked at the old and young men supporting each other. Suddenly, I laughed out loud. "This secret is about you, Song Chengyu. You don't even have the surname Song, nor are you an ordinary commoner who rose from a humble background. In fact, your surname is Wang. You're the biological son of the current Prime Minister, Wang Xiaod. Your mother is the current Empress Dowager. A child born of an affair between the Empress Dowager and the Prime Minister. Do you think the Emperor will let you live if he finds out?" Having my long-buried secret exposed, Prime Minister Wang's face turned ashen, and he opened his mouth to deny it, under the suspicious gazes of the guests present. Prime Minister Wang suddenly pushed me. "It's all you. You're talking nonsense and misleading the public. Unable to escape punishment for killing someone, you're framing me." "Don't believe a word she says." Seeing Prime Minister Wang lose his composure, I crossed my arms and chuckled. "If I'm talking nonsense, why not let the Emperor investigate? He who has done nothing wrong fears no accusation. Only those with a guilty conscience feel flustered." The crowd erupted in murmurs again. They commented on the flustered Prime Minister Wang and Song Chengyu. Song Chengyu, who was used to being arrogant and upright, couldn't stand the pointing and whispering. He opened his mouth to deny it, but all he could say was "No, it's a lie, she's lying." He couldn't think of any other defense. Ignoring Prime Minister Wang's bleeding wound, he grabbed his severed hand tightly. "Is what she said true? Tell me, she's lying, isn't she? I was born of a noble family. I'm not the illegitimate child of you and the Empress Dowager, I sneered mockingly. Song Changyu was too ashamed to say the word affair. As for Prime Minister Wang, he hung his head and dared not admit it. I shook my head. In the previous life, it was after learning about his true identity that Song Changyu began to covet the throne. The emperor was seriously ill and on the verge of death, but he had no heirs in his life. With the help of the Jiang family's power, Song Changyu climbed step by step to the throne. And the original owner was also killed by Song Changyu after he ascended the throne. She accidentally stumbled upon his shameful background and was silenced. I looked at Song Changyu, who was like a drowning dog. I walked up to him and lifted his chin with my whip. Well, do you believe it now? Now I don't need to kill you myself. Just wait for your punishment. You'd better pray that the emperor shows mercy and spares some affection for his newly emerged illegitimate brother. Song Chengyu's always cold eyes were filled with pain. He grabbed my hand. Zhaoyun, you're lying to me, aren't you? You're jealous of my love for Weina, so you're deliberately taking revenge on me and teasing me, aren't you? I shook off his hand in disgust. I ordered someone to bring a brocade handkerchief to wipe my hand clean, then threw it in his face. I don't have the time or energy to play with you. The revenge is real, but if your father hadn't done those dirty things, how could I have caught him and uncovered the secret? Song Changyu hugged his head in despair. He didn't even care about Liu Weina, who was unconscious from blood loss beside him. He kept hitting his head against the pillar. Seeing this, Prime Minister Wang felt sorry for him and stopped him. But his action only confirmed that Song Changyu was the illegitimate child of him and the Empress Dowager. Song Changyu was stopped, and he angrily pushed him away. His eyes were filled with hatred, as if he wanted to tear Prime Minister Wang to pieces. I didn't want to look at them anymore, so I waved my hand. At my father's command, the servants immediately dragged the two of them to the imperial prison. After the guests left, my father examined the wound on my neck. His face turning cold, my brother wanted to touch it but didn't dare, and his eyes turned red instantly. Zhaoyun, you've suffered. If I had known this would happen, I would never have agreed to you marrying Song Changyu. Sister, it's all my fault for coming too late. From now on, I'll definitely protect you and never let any malicious villains approach you again. Looking at my father and brother, who cared for me meticulously, I pretended to be nonchalant. It's just a scar on my neck, it will fade soon. After comforting them, my father frowned and asked me, but Zhaoyun, how did you find out that Song Changyu is the son of Prime Minister Wang and the Empress Dowager? Before I could think of an excuse to get around it, my brother patted me heavily on the shoulder carelessly. That goes without saying. My sister is extremely intelligent. She has spies all over the capital. What can't she find out? My father looked at me with concern. I'm just worried that you're planning too much and overthinking things, which will hurt your health. Looking at the loving expressions of my father and brother, I sighed in my heart. Perhaps the heavens knew that I had little kinship in my previous life. That's why they gave me such a deep bond of kinship after my rebirth. A kinship bestowed by heaven. In this life, I will definitely take good care of my relatives on behalf of the original owner, who died with hatred, my father, brother, and I rushed to the palace on horseback to see the emperor. But as soon as we received the emperor's permission to enter the hall, I smelled a strong scent of medicine. After finally reporting Prime Minister Wang's heinous crimes, beneath the layers of curtains in the hall of mental cultivation, the emperor's breathing became weak and labored. Quickly invite the Empress Dowager here. I must ask her, has she been hiding from me and the late emperor all these years? Giving birth to a younger brother for me. Before long, the Empress Dowager was escorted into the hall of mental cultivation. Faced with the emperor, who was lying on the couch and struggling to get up, the Empress Dowager didn't even bother to help her sickly son, instead focusing on admiring her brightly colored nail polish. Tears welled up in the emperor's eyes as he stared fixedly at the Empress Dowager. He tried to find a trace of maternal love in her eyes, but found none. Mother, that newly appointed Zhuangyuan, top scholar, Song Changyu, is he really your son with Prime Minister Wang? The Empress Dowager sat beside the emperor's dragon couch, remaining silent for a long time. Silence spread through the hall of mental cultivation. After a while, the Empress Dowager reached out to touch her dying son. I hated the late emperor. He ruined my life, stifled my freedom, and trapped me in the deep palace. Why could he have 3 palaces and 6 courtyards, siring numerous heirs, while I couldn't? Her words were almost an admission. She confessed to having an affair with Prime Minister Wang. Song Chengyu was the illegitimate child she had conceived with her lover behind the late emperor's back. The emperor's breathing quickened as he stared angrily at the Empress Dowager, his pale hands clutched tightly at the curtain hanging from the bed. On the other side of the hall of mental cultivation, my sister lifted the curtain of the side hall. She looked at me with a bright smile. "Sister, I haven't seen you in so long." Strangely enough, even though I had only inherited the original owner's memories not long ago, I felt an intimate bond with my family. "Now that you're the empress, you can't be seen as easily as when you were unmarried. Besides, the emperor's health is getting worse and worse. I have to stay by his side at all times to serve him his medicine." Speaking of this, she seemed to remember something. "I heard that Song Chengyu is the Empress Dowager's and Prime Minister Wang's. Is this true?" I nodded. "Absolutely true. He is indeed their illegitimate child." My sister let out a gasp. She glanced around, then gently tapped my forehead. "You silly girl, be careful what you say in the palace, lest you speak too bluntly and give others ammunition to hold against you." I threw myself into my sister's arms, enjoying the rare warmth of a family reunion. "I'm not afraid. My sister is the most honored empress in the dynasty. With you protecting me, who dares to gossip?" My sister stroked my hair, smiling softly. "When will you ever grow up?" But for once, that muddled head of yours has come to its senses, finally. "You realize that Song Chengyu isn't your destined partner," and called father and brother to break off the engagement. My sister looked at me with concern, her gaze lingering on me with worry. "Once, you were like you'd been cursed by him, humbling yourself, refusing to listen to anyone's advice, watching his heart wasn't with you. It broke my heart to see your sincerity being trampled on again and again." I patted my sister's hand to reassure her. "Just think of me as blind before, valuing him like a treasure. Now I understand, he's nothing but a pile of dog shit, not even worth a second glance." My sister was amused by my words. Just then, a eunuch's shrill wail echoed through the hall of mental cultivation. "The emperor has passed away." My sister and I looked at each other in shock. Although she didn't have a deep relationship with the emperor, she still had to put on a show of grief. I knelt down to kowtow along with everyone else. Immediately, a palace maid's urgent report came from outside the hall. "It's a disaster. Prime Minister Wang has escaped from the imperial prison and led troops to besiege the palace in rebellion." Listening to the maid's report from outside, I glanced at the emperor, who had already stopped breathing on the couch ahead. I pulled my father and brother aside, then looked at my anxious sister. I opened my mouth and finally blurted out, "Father, we should also raise troops and rebel. The emperor has already passed away, and he had no heirs in his life. You've been loyal to the monarch and patriotic all your life. No one is more worthy of sitting on that throne than you. If you, the Prince Regent, don't raise troops today, and Prime Minister Wang takes the lead, once he supports Song Chengyu to ascend the throne, the first thing he'll do is falsely accuse us of harboring malicious intentions and holding military power to act independently." My father took one last look at the emperor on the dragon couch. I knew it wouldn't be easy for a loyal minister who had served diligently all his life to decide to rebel. After a long while, my father looked at my brother and sister with difficulty. They exchanged glances and nodded. My father stood up from his kneeling position, like a towering mountain. Outside the hall, the cold glint of armor and chaotic footsteps could be heard. Prime Minister Wang's voice echoed, "Traitors inside the hall, come out and surrender immediately." I stepped out of the hall. Prime Minister Wang led the way, followed by thousands of troops. I looked at my father with concern, but he patted my head gently and whispered close to my ear, "Don't worry at all. My private troops have already surrounded the entire imperial city. I never fight an unprepared battle. I will never let my daughter die here." Prime Minister Wang stepped forward alone to persuade the Empress Dowager. "No matter which son of yours becomes emperor, you will still be the Empress Dowager, the most honored woman in the world. But if someone else ascends the throne, not only will you lose your title as Empress Dowager, But you may not even keep your life. Listening to Prime Minister Wang threatening and luring the Empress Dowager. I turned to look, ready to drive him back with my whip, but I saw the Empress Dowager hesitating. She took a step forward several times, then slowly stepped back. In the bitter cold wind, the flag of clearing the ruler's side fluttered in the wind. The Empress Dowager raised her head to look at the clear blue sky. Finally, she took a step back. She sighed deeply. I'm tired. I don't want to fight anymore. I've done many outrageous things in my life. But I never felt sorry for anyone. But if I let you become emperor, I will be letting down the people of the world. Although the Empress Dowager didn't explicitly state it, I quietly let out a sigh of relief. Now, one fewer person would have to die. At that moment, Song Chungyu stepped out of the crowd. Clearly, after a period of psychological struggle, he had calmly accepted his identity as an illegitimate child. After all, his birth mother was the prestigious Empress Dowager. He knelt down before the Empress Dowager with tears in his eyes. Mother, I'm your biological son. I don't blame you for not raising me for a single day, but you can't distinguish right from wrong and hand over the country to others. Song Chungyu then turned to me. Zhao Yun, as long as you persuade your father and brother to surrender and support me instead, I promise you, if I ascend the throne as emperor, I will definitely make you my empress. I curled my lips. Amused by his audacity. No need, a traitor like you deserves to be beaten to death with sticks. How dare you still dream of marrying a princess? Seeing that persuading me was useless, Song Chungyu turned back to try to persuade the Empress Dowager to abdicate. The Empress Dowager ignored him, closed her eyes gently, and said slowly, I know in my heart who truly cares about the country and the people. I don't want to be ridiculed and cursed by the ministers and the people even after I die. Song Chungyu's pupils contracted sharply. He had never expected that his own birth mother, the Empress Dowager, would not choose him. In the nick of time, he suddenly grabbed the Empress Dowager and held her hostage. He choked her neck and dragged her back. Song Chungyu's fierce eyes were like a venomous snake. He hissed in the Empress Dowager's ear. I gave you a chance to abdicate to me voluntarily, but you refused. If that's the case, don't blame me for being ruthless and using you. Son though I am, Song Chungyu kept a calm expression on his face. Covering the Empress Dowager's mouth tightly, he said to the thousands of troops following him, now that the late emperor has passed away, the Empress Dowager has agreed to abdicate to me. As soon as the Empress Dowager writes the abdication edict, I can enter the palace and ascend the throne as emperor. The Empress Dowager flew into a rage. She bit hard on Song Chungyu's hand that was covering her mouth. Taking advantage of this gap, my father shot an arrow through the air. It pierced the sky and struck Song Chungyu's arm directly. An arrow shot with all the strength of a lifelong martial artist. How could a weak scholar like Song Chungyu withstand it? Song Chungyu cried out in pain and fell backward to the ground. He struggled to get up, trying to pull out the arrow from his arm, but blood spurted out. He lost too much blood and couldn't pull out the arrow that my father had shot with great force. Seeing this, my brother shook his head and clicked his tongue at me. Sister, how on earth did you ever take a fancy to such a weak man? I waved my hand and laughed out loud. I was blindfolded by lard back then, mistaking fish eyes for pearls. When Prime Minister Wang saw that Song Chungyu was injured, he flew into a rage and immediately waved his hand to signal the forbidden troops to attack. Thousands of forbidden troops swarmed forward. The originally clear blue sky over the imperial city seemed to be darkened by the shadow of their armor, but they didn't expect that long before entering the palace to see the emperor, and exposing Prime Minister Wang's crimes. The Prince Regent had already made thorough preparations. He had long-stationed soldiers everywhere in the palace. If no one rebelled, everything would be peaceful. But once someone attempted to rebel, it would be like catching a turtle in a jar, easily accomplished. At my father's command, the soldiers hidden everywhere in the palace swarmed out. They caught the forbidden troops who had rebelled with Song Chungyu off guard. The battle was over in just 3 or 4 hours, with my father's forces completely defeating the rebels. After the casualties, the quiet battlefield was covered with blood, and armor encased the corpses. I sighed as I looked at the remains of the fallen soldiers. Behind me, there was a rustling sound. It was my brother walking over slowly and gently covering my eyes. Sister, war is cruel, either they fall or we do. Those who survive should cherish life all the more. I smiled softly and pulled down his hand that was covering my eyes. If that's the case, why did you cover my eyes and not let me look? My brother was tongue-tied and said no more. Amidst the corpses all over the palace, there was a sudden movement. A figure slowly struggled to get up. It was Song Chungyu. I stared at him in shock. You actually survived. You're lucky to be alive. Song Chungyu's eyes scanned back and forth between me and my brother. His clothes were tattered. And after losing an arm, he couldn't even keep his armor on. It hung loosely on him, making him look even more like a lingering ghost. He let out a ferocious laugh with his last strength. Jiang Zhaoyun, what's wrong? Are you disappointed that I'm still alive? I nodded. Indeed, as the saying goes, when cutting weeds, you must dig out the roots. When wiping out a family, you have to shake even the egg yolk to smithereens before leaving. I won't rest easy until I see you dead. With that, I kindly informed him, Liu Weiner lost too much blood and died in the imperial prison. As for your father, Prime Minister Wang, my father just pierced his chest. I specifically ordered them to leave him with a sliver of life. His eyes widened, as if he hadn't expected me to be so kind. I took a breath and went on. Then I told them to drag him down and beat him to death with sticks. If you hurry to the mass grave now, you might still catch his remains before the wild dogs finish gnawing them to bits. As Song Chungyu spat out a mouthful of blood in rage, I heard my brother snort a low laugh beside me. Song Chungyu let out a roar and charged at me. I'll take you down with me even if I die. Jiang Zhaoyun, you're going to die with me. I dodged sideways. A man at his last gasp was hardly worth my attention, but as I evaded, I never expected Song Chungyu had hidden an arrowhead. It was the very one my father had shot into his arm, small and sharp, perfect for tucking into his sleeve as a hidden weapon after yanking it out. Look out! Someone shielded me from behind, followed by a muffled grunt from my brother. I spun around. Song Chungyu was already pinned to the ground, a sword piercing his heart, my brother's doing. I didn't spare a glance to check if Song Chungyu was still breathing. All the talk about cutting weeds and digging out roots flew right out of my head. I anxiously pulled my brother over to inspect him. Thankfully, he'd only suffered a shallow scratch on the back of his hand when he'd shielded my waist. A soft voice sounded above my head. I told you, with me here, I'll never let my sister get hurt again, under my careful care. The scratch faded completely in little over a month. A month later, my brother's coronation ceremony was about to begin. The sky was clear and bright, a perfect day. My sister had long shed her old identity, leaving the shadow of the former empress behind her. Now dressed in her finest regalia, she stood beside my father, waiting to receive their imperial rewards. I squinted, letting the warm sunlight bathe my skin. All the darkness was in the past. Fortunately, it was still not too late. ***. The end. ***.